All right, folks. So welcome to the session on. Looks like we've got 46 participants at this point. Maybe it'll tick up a little bit, but it's a couple of minutes in, so we're going to start up. This is the session on drafting guidelines for vocabulary selection by data curators and repositories. Margaret O'Brien and I are going to be co-presenting. Margaret is from the Environmental Data Initiative. She's also associated with the Santa Barbara Coastal Ecosystems LTER, Long-Term Ecological Research Station, as well as the Santa Barbara Coastal MBON program, and has had a lot of experience as a marine scientist and information manager, and now a repository manager as well. And I'm Mark Schildhauer. I'm at UC Santa Barbara as well, where I'm associated with the National Center for Ecological Analysis and Synthesis, and was director of computing at NCEAS for many years. I'm also deeply involved with the semantic efforts, both on the Arctic Data Center, the NSF Arctic Data Center, as well as Data One. So we will move forward. Margaret? So this is a brief overview of our agenda. You heard Aaron kind of set out some of the guidelines. Presumably by this time, we're all experts in the use of KikoChat and Zoom. But there is a code of conduct, which is basically being very respectful of all the participants in this session. So first of all, what we're going to talk about is just, why are we interested in vocabularies? We are then going to try some very ambitious experiments with our facility with breakouts. We're going to be basically crowdsourcing your experiences using a Google spreadsheet. And so that should be fun. On the basis of that, then we are going to break down those spreadsheets and look at if there's any commonalities expressed by all the individuals. So that first crowdsourcing part, it's individual experience. Then we kind of cluster into groups and try to identify commonalities. We'll then come back together to talk about what we saw there in those breakouts. This is, if you have the role of a moderator, we're going to ask you to provide about a 2-minute summary of that breakout. Then we're going to go back out to even smaller breakouts. And for what we call rebuttals, omissions, and harumphs, which is an opportunity to be very candid about how you feel about what we're trying to do with respect to vocabulary guidelines. And then finally, we're going to have hopefully come to some consensus and actually have some discrete action items to move forward with at ESIP. Okay, next, Margaret. Okay, so, I just wanted to mention as well, I know it's been a long day for some of you, for our collaborators over in Europe and Asia, and well, depends on what side of Asia, I guess, but Europe and Africa, this is a long day for you. For our friends over on the east side of Asia and Australia, it's wake up time. So thank you for hanging in there or getting up early to attend. We wanted to mention, though, that immediately following our presentation, I think about a half hour later, there's yet another very, very complimentary presentation led by Simon Cox and Leslie Wyborn and Adrian, I'm going to mess up the name. So let's just say Simon Cox and Leslie Wyborn et al. Also on, the proliferation of vocabularies. We'd strongly encourage you to attend that as well. Okay, so here's where we are. So many terms that Earth system scientists are using. And we look at those, what do they mean? And how do we know? Well, probably a lot of us learned these terms, in our undergraduate or graduate education. We gradually accumulated knowledge just from our local disciplinary interactions. So we have a good idea about what we think all of these terms mean. Next, Margaret. And yet, we feel that logical clarity is very much key to making data more fair. And for those of you who have not heard about FAIR, I would say, where have you been? And secondly, what FAIR is based on this paper, very impactful paper by Mark Wilkinson et al. From a couple, 3 years ago. FAIR, findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. And I think they've really captured their, the facets of concern relative to what we need to do with data. We have to make data, you can find the data you want with great recall and precision. It should be readily accessible. Ideally, it goes across the web, and that's where the W3C approaches are really useful. And ideally, then there's enough clarity to enable you reuse those data sets. Next. So when you think about the fact that those terms and how do we know what they mean? Well, probably at some point in the distant past, maybe you young researchers are not familiar with, there were things called dictionaries and thesauri, and they were, printed on paper. And, if you didn't know what something was, you would look it up. Probably nowadays we just, use the Google. But, this is really sort of canonical ways that we have stored our understanding of terms and the multiple meanings they can have. Next, Margaret. Okay, so here is, a platinum standard. This is a play on words. But, when you look at the dictionary entry for kilogram, it's very, very nice and terse. A unit of weight and mass equal to 1,000 grams. So then probably you'd have to go and look up grams to be sure what that was. And hopefully it doesn't say 1/1000th of a kilogram. But it's changed today because no longer is this dictionary definition valid. Today, the kilogram is based on measurements relative to space and time, believe it or not. It's Planck's constant, the velocity of light, the atomic transition frequency of cesium. But nevertheless, we have a common understanding. But then most of the rest of the terms, you're going to come across something like this. Earth. What is Earth? The planet we live on? Or if you look at number 3, well, it could also be all the people on Earth. Or number 4, it's land as distinguished from sea or sky. Or number 5, soft granular, crumbly parts of land, the soil or ground. Or let's skip over the poetic stuff, but down to the chemistry, it's a metallic oxide. And you can imagine, similarly, a lot of scientific terms have these multiple interpretations and usages. Next. But luckily, we do have the web to help. And this is just a representation of Tim Berners-Lee's, 5-star notion of how to link data, which is very relevant here. I'd really like to draw your attention particularly to how PDFs and Excel spreadsheets and even CSVs don't quite make the grade. What we need to do is get them up into standard web interchangeable representations to give us the LOD standing for linked open data. Next. So, choosing vocabularies. Well, the real choice, as we see it, is whether we're going to have a confusion of tongues, which that's the Tower of Babel, for those of you who aren't art aficionados, or should we have a peaceable kingdom, which is what we hope that this ESIP session is going to lead to convergence on a more peaceable kingdom. Next. And so I'm going to hand it over to Margaret at this point.
She can find the mute button. Okay, so now I want to talk a little bit about some specific motivations that people have for selecting vocabularies. I'm a data manager. I work with primary researchers. And my experience then is working with them on their ecosystem level projects, preparing their data for use, like for synthesis or for ad hoc sharing, where they don't know what's going to happen to it. So this includes advising and consulting on how to preserve and archive pretty diverse data sets. And I work with a repository, and I'm not an application developer or a software engineer. But I think, first of all, after hearing all of you and why you're here, is that we agree that referencing a controlled vocabulary is a useful thing to do. And more, we're seeing scientists and data managers who want to make use of these as tools for their data. And as we do that, these are some of the questions that we're starting to get. So people who are looking for vocabularies to use ask these sorts of things. What vocabulary should I use for different parts of a data set? Which one is best for this particular part? And so, okay, now I found this term and you tell me I should use its URI. How do I find that thing? I know of a thesaurus and they say it's a Scots vocabulary. Is that okay? Should I look for something more complex? There might be multiple versions of a vocabulary. Which one am I supposed to use? Are they all reliable? And then from the point of view of, say, of an engineer, there are similar questions, but they're probably more technically oriented because its community might say, oh, please support vocabulary XYZ. And so the kind of questions that person is going to have are, where's the API? Is it stable? And that could apply to either the API or the vocabulary content. Can I trust this server to stay up? What format is this vocabulary stored in? Where is its documentation? And then the questions get even more detailed for different use cases. For instance, if you want to use the API to build a widget and display some information about a term, what is it you should show? And suppose you're asked to build a tool to help users actually match to the vocabulary. How do you filter that? And so these kinds of features, to answer those questions, there's a couple of axes you could arrange these features on. And one of them might be primarily social. First, the terms cover your data. For this, you'd need to be able to access definitions. So are they there? Is there a hierarchy? And does it correspond to how you use that term? How wide is the community that uses this vocabulary? Are there people in the discipline? Are the people that are in that discipline actually aware of it? Does it get used by other disciplines? And within the vocabulary construction community itself, are there terms that are aligned? And overall, can you tell that this candidate vocabulary plays well with others? And what about its governance process? Is there a way to add or amend a term? If everything else is perfect, except it's just missing one little bit, how do you fix that? Are they responsive to questions? And what about support or future help? And finally, what are their future prospects? Is this a fly-by-night test that someone did, or is this something you can rely on for a longer term? And then there's a whole slew of features that a repository engineer would look for too, that are somewhat similar. Where is that API? And let's assume that each term has its own global unique identifier. Is it dereferenceable through HTTP at the term level? They would need that. Are there any naked terms? They don't want to have their widget showing big blank spots. How are the terms managed? If one is deprecated, is there a redirect? What kinds of tools are used to actually manage this vocabulary? For how are revisions handled? And is that process transparent? And again, is there a human readable interface for exploring and choosing terms in this vocabulary? And for the point of view of an engineer, it would be so that I don't have to write it myself. Maybe it already exists. So if you are selecting vocabularies that are what we would say higher up on the semantic ladder, then you actually have a whole lot of technical capabilities available. And we're not going to go into detail with this group of technical features. But this is a quick list to know that this is what underlines the best vocabularies that are out there today. Data managers and researchers will be mostly isolated from these details, but some of you will need to know how to take advantage of these features. And I think I'm going to pass it back to Mark. Yes.
Yeah, thanks, Margaret. So one advantage of vocabularies that do conform to some of those technical features, especially that Margaret just detailed on the past two slides, is that you can contribute them to what is known as an ontology repository. And the emphasis here isn't so much on a repository, meaning a compendium of lots of different vocabularies, although unfortunately that is what it tends to be happening now. It's that these frameworks know how to parse those vocabularies appropriately, and thereby can give some very nice services in terms of those human interfaces and the API, the powerfulness of the API calls that you can make. And we've listed some, the ESIP core with the Community Ontology Repository, for example, or I don't know if John Graybeel's on the line, but he's behind BioPortal and the OntoPortal Alliance, and then there's OntoB, and there are others as well. But these all provide some very powerful both interfaces as well as API services for viewing vocabularies if they are constructed according to those various features and languages that we articulated in the prior 2 slides. Next. So.
Okay.
That is our preface about why vocabularies and what some of the considerations you need to make in choosing a vocabulary. But now what we'd really like you to do is to reflect on your own experiences with vocabularies and to tell us about your experiences. And the way we're going to do this is we've created a Google Sheet. Now, it's the same Google Sheet for everybody. And hopefully you're all on the agenda so you can see the link, because Margaret, the links were there on the...
Yeah, but they can't click on them on the shared screen.
Yeah, they can't. So you should...
They're in the agenda.
They are in the agenda, and...
Click on the left menu. If you click on individual exercise.
Yeah, Aaron's just posted it there. So in the agenda, we are down to item 2B. So what we'd like you all to do is to take about 10 minutes, actually take 10 minutes, and on the basis of your surname, go into the appropriate spreadsheet. And we've set that out so that about the first 250 lines are available for you to use the pick lists that we've established, where you can specify what your thematic interests are, what your roles are, and then we've given you 2 columns to pick a domain vocabulary that you use, if any, as well as some of the generic vocabularies, like for observations and measurements, are very, very upper level stuff like Dublin Core. Please list those there, and don't stress about the fact if you use a bunch of those or you have lots of scientific, broad thematic interests, just kind of the first things that come to the top of your head. And then we will reconvene in 10 minutes. So it is currently 1:20. So please just jump into the requisite spreadsheet for your surname initial, fill in the information, and from there, then we'll start to get a better grip on our collective experiences.
And can I add one more thing? If you feel like taking up more than one line, go right ahead.
Absolutely.
If you use 5 vocabularies and you want to say something about each one, do it. Mark, you're going to drop into see how it's going?
So, Margaret, one thing is that Anne has not shown up yet.
Okay, so we need a moderator.
Yep.
I'm looking at the list.
That was room 4. So that...
Let's see, I thought I saw a few people who I haven't seen at ESIP much. Kathy. I'll message her.
Can you verbally describe what, if I'm getting to limitations and benefits, I realize I don't know with respect to what? What are these vocabularies supposed to satisfy exactly?
Yeah, so when I filled this out, for instance, on limitations, and obviously, John, there's a whole bunch of potential limitations. So again, it's just maybe listing the top 1 or 2 things that really bug you. For me, it was that some of my needed terms are missing. That would be a limitation of existing vocabularies.
Thank you. It's a general answer, not specifically to any one of these.
Right.
Got it. Thanks.
I think we might have Don from Noah on the phone. We've got one call-in user.
Okay. Can we hook
Yeah,
that
it's
person
it's
up
it's
to
tough for the call-ins.
It's okay. They can *6 to unmute,
Okay.
and they can *9 to raise their hand, and we can put them into a breakout. Is it Don?
Yeah, this is
Hey, Don.
Don. Sorry, I just was in the spreadsheet, but I thought I had just unmuted myself. I just called in a minute ago. I was listening to YouTube before. So,
Cool.
so
No,
if you can
that's
put me to
perfect.
the breakout, that'd be cool.
Yeah, we haven't broken out yet, but I will make sure that you're in a breakout. And I just wanted to make sure that you had access to the spreadsheet. So that's super cool.
Thanks,
I
Aaron.
just typed my name in, so thanks.
Great
Aaron,
work,
our,
Don.
our
Yep.
fifth moderator, Aaron, is Kathy Todd Brown.
Okay. Perfect. And I'm renaming those guys just so that I know which room they're going into.
Okay.
Kathy was my.
My curator, this is Payne. I'm having trouble access the presentations and among other Google Doc, but I'm okay with the Kiko chat, but not other one.
So is
First,
it a
I saw that maybe because I'm signing as Noah, so I log off and signing as NC State. Yeah, I'm still having trouble. It says I need access. Access.
Can I put your, I thought I made the links all editable by anyone, but I can add them explicitly if I need to. So,
Okay, I can just request access. You
Sure.
see.
Oh,
Okay.
I got to go find my email, or just tell me your email address that you're going to use.
Okay, I'll put in the chat.
Okay. Yeah, I shut my email. to
Thanks,
avoid
sorry about that.
distractions. No. I was afraid something like that would happen. All right.
Let me encourage folks. It looks like there's a lot of participation, which is great. Please don't be shy if all of this is new to you. You know, express that as well. That's useful information for us to know as we try to move forward with how to establish these guidelines for vocabulary use.
Peng, which room are which letter group are you in? Just so I don't have to go through all 5 of them just now. Peng, are you there?
I'm not sure. I was looking at the presentations and I also click on the other Google Doc,
Oh,
but
okay.
I'm not able to.
Here, why don't you use this? Whoops, I'm sending it to Kathy. Wait a minute.
And they probably already coming back. And I don't have to worry about it. I do want to participate in the breakout room though.
Okay. So let me see.
I think some people, I've noticed some people are very cleverly adding their name multiple times to better reflect the diversity of their interests. And that's a very good, clever solution that we had not explicitly anticipated, but it's fine.
Should I
Please
do
go ahead
that
and do
all
that.
over your Google Doc? Make sure you catch it.
Let me see here.
I don't fit in a box.
Take
Such
2
an
boxes.
ESIP thing to say.
You know, I want to point out, if you look at this spreadsheet, there are additional tabs for themes and roles and domain vocabs and generic vocabs. And the orange area is kind of restricted, that we've controlled that, but we know that we're not comprehensive at all here. So please feel free to suggest in the areas below. I think there's actually a line there that says add any new themes, add any new roles, add any, that would really be useful information as well. So everybody should just give a look at those tabs if you feel like we're just not even covering your theme or role or generic or domain vocabulary in the pick lists.
Yeah, we couldn't help ourselves. We had to pick up control vocabulary for some columns. So I think we're coming up on our time here. 2 minutes?
This is a great idea, you guys.
And the spreadsheets seem to be working okay.
Yeah.
They do.
They haven't crashed and burned. Maybe we didn't need 5.
Well, better to be safe than sorry. And it's a nice,
Yeah,
We
much
wanted to-
easier for the users to not step on each other.
yeah.
The first
wanted
20
the
users like,
lines-
boom.
And we wanted
the
it to be
lines aren't jumping.
structured.
What? Yeah, the lines aren't jumping down so much for people. I think it's actually it seems like the right amount of people in the doc.
Can do a
Okay, we got
sidestep.
about 1 minute left, folks. So please visit those other tabs to add things if you want.
And we
One
will
other,
be visiting these later. Go ahead, Erin.
I was just gonna say, while people are wrapping up, if you don't want to go into a breakout, if you can just rename yourself with a little X at the front, then I won't put you in a breakout. But otherwise, Margaret and Mark, I'm ready to go and opening the rooms whenever you
Yeah, I'm
are.
working with Joe on that.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Why don't we let everybody just return here and then we can shoot them off to their breakouts. Brian, you've asked what do limitations and benefits represent? Yeah, we're talking specifically about the kind of how much you're loving your vocabulary if you're using one, and what you'd want it, why it's not serving your purposes or why you're really stoked about it.
Okay.
So Shelley, the breakouts are all going to be addressing, yes, the same issue, but they're going to be working with different source materials. So that would lead to potentially some different discussions in the different respective breakouts. And then we'll try to pull those together in a kind of a plenary discussion afterwards.
So I think we're ready to start the breakouts. I've shared my screen again as a reminder. We have 5 rooms, and which seems like it'll be fine. I think we have about 50 people. I can't quite tell anymore. And there's a moderator in each one. And some of our moderators are new to this group, which is wonderful. So they are Pierre, who a lot of you know, and Kai, who you know, Karen Stocks, Kathy Todd Brown, a soil scientist, who you probably already know. She's been in ESIP for a while. So I think Erin's going to send you to, and so once you're in a breakout room, your breakout room has a number. And so you will look at the spreadsheet that goes with that number. It may or may not be the one you put your information into. That doesn't matter. And your charge is to summarize these experiences. And there's a note stock that's also in this same link, which I see people landing on. That's good. And it has a section for each breakout room with these kind of pre-formatted bullets sections. So the idea of the pre-formatted bullets is you won't be causing lots of text bouncing below you if you stay in a group of bullets. So Erin, I think, does anybody have any questions? Is that enough to get going and start talking?
And the responsibility of the moderators will be to try to summarize that in a 2-minute discussion when we return to plenary. And so this will take about 15 minutes. And what we're hoping is that there's some nice animated discussion and reflection on what you see in your particular spreadsheet.
And one more thing, assign someone to be a note taker. That shouldn't be a moderator. The moderator is keeping people, in line and trying to hear from as many people as possible. But if someone can volunteer to note take in each room, that would be great. A different person.
Yeah, so we'll reconvene in about 15 minutes.
And then Mark and I can float. I think she has it set up so we can bounce in and out if we want, but we don't need to.
Okay, so I'll send you to a breakout, Margaret and Mark, and if you want to come back, you can just come back. Everybody else, the timer is going to say 13 minutes, and then there'll be a countdown timer that has 2 minutes on it. That'll give you the full 15 minutes. So you don't have to, you're not going to be yanked immediately back. And if at any time you want to leave your breakout room, you can leave and come back to the main room. So I think that that is everything. So I'll open all the rooms.
Thanks.
Ready?
Great.
Okay.
So, Raisa, you mentioned the mix, is it MICS standard for
We
topics?
have a few.
Okay. Mhm. So, yeah. So mix is also being used at ESS Dive, right, Ron?
Hello,
Hi.
can you put me in breakout room
So
3,
I added
please?
ESIP to
Sure.
question 2 or 3.
Thanks.
Are other
Yep.
meetings like AGU or other meetings that people
Hi.
go to in graduate
Hi.
school?
Can you put me in
resources?
room 4?
Is this Jackie?
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
User friendliness, there are issues, a set of issues with user friendliness and term selection. Sometimes you have to contend with very large things and you don't have the middleware developers to develop those friendly interfaces. You know, the ontology developers may not do it, or vocab developers may not do it, but we need that middleware to be developed to as an interface. Right, and then cross-domain work, it's still difficult. Even though some of the vocabularies are cross-domain, they can't possibly keep track of the needs and the conventions in those domains without in-domain representatives. So that's a general summary, but I'm going to embolden and highlight the point about this communication and trust building as one of our key impediments at the moment.
So it's a sociocultural issue largely.
Yes, there needs to be technology, of course, to make that happen faster. You know, technology is the capacity to do work faster. So we need that, but then we need to focus it on that particular interface.
Thanks, Pierre. Okay, room number 2, Kai.
Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and try and summarize. And if Leslie wants to jump in or Matt, that would also be appreciated, but I will take a first pass at it. And so we kind of discussed a variety of things. We kind of can't converge on a few higher level themes. We need to start comparing catalogs of vocabulary repositories rather than just individual vocabularies themselves. Some of them are federated, some of them aren't, some of them get used together, some of them don't. It can be a little confusing where to start. Yeah, that was a really big important point from the user perspective, you know, who's not a vocabulary developer or experienced with what to use. It can be very confusing, obviously. And that's, you know, one of the main focuses of this whole session, I'm sure. So we kind of got some agreement on we need some sort of coordinated directories of catalogs for earth and environmental vocabularies. There are a few examples. Core could be one, for example. There were some examples in Australia, which maybe Leslie could talk about a little more. And in terms of harmonizing them, yeah, so like there were some interesting use cases. Actually, Leslie, if you don't mind just explaining the Australian use case for everyone, I think that would be helpful.
Sorry, Adrian will be talking about it in the next session. Research Vocabularies Australia runs this directory of vocabularies, and we said we would not, because we're informatics supporters, we were not going to provide guidance to people on which one to pick. But it's getting to the stage where the users are now complaining, because particularly in earth and environmental sciences, they type in a term and they get a choice of 10 vocabs. Well, which one do they choose? I mean, from the user perspective, they don't know to look for things like, is it endorsed? Is it going to be sustainable? And yeah, and then the other issue is that, so we have copies of GCMD in our service, but why can't we start linking the vocabulary services globally so that there's only one copy of it, but we pull it into our service? And we also feel that this is proliferation is in part being driven by everyone switching to linked open data, because everyone just wants a vocab for their linked open data APIs to work, and bang, they're doing it that way. I think that's
So
what you wanted me to say.
And so that we all get siloed instead of converging on something.
We're siloing at the moment, we're not converging. And that's the point of the next session. Do we need to do something about it, or can we live with it?
Leslie, are you guys also going to talk about internationalization in a language sense?
Well, the only one I know that's done that, we can, is the International Geological Science Union vocabs, which I've listed there. And they're about the only one I know that's tried to do them as multilingual based on concepts.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not translating a term from one language to the other. They're saying, what is the concept and how do you express that concept in this particular language?
Right.
That's a whole new can of worms. That's, well, we were actually trying to do that in CGI 15 years ago, but I think it's starting to emerge as something that's critical.
Yeah.
Hey,
Thanks.
Leslie, there's a question in the chat from Tyler. Mark, I don't know if we have time to get into this, but Tyler was wanting clarification on what it meant if NASA would host GCMD properly.
That was a comment from Simon, I think.
Yeah,
No,
Aaron, I think we don't have time to air that. Yeah.
Okay. We'll come back to that. Come
Dr.
to the plenary
Shorthair
tonight.
Oh, no, we never said that.
No.
Oh, that's Simon, sorry. Please excuse Simon, he's Australian.
Okay, we've got to move on, folks. So thanks, Kai and Leslie. How about room 3, Karen?
Yep. So we sort of talked around the room about our own challenges and perspectives, as well as what was in the list. And some things floated to the top as pretty common concerns. One is the need for clear, unambiguous, and consistent definitions. That, as well as, you know, this was phrased in different ways. Insufficient definitions, documentation is a problem. The +4 just means we kind of went around and said, who else has that issue? And hands went up. Along with that, missing vocabularies and missing terms in vocabularies, as well as process for adding terms, is slow. So then there are some specific missing vocabularies that were listed there. A couple of people had issues with translating or mapping between vocabularies, either because their group needed to put out their terms in different vocabularies for different communities, or because they're dealing with legacy terminology that they're trying to map to a new vocabulary. And that support for that is needed. We still have people using homegrown vocabularies because, gosh darn it, it's just easier to put your head down and get your work done. Though at the same time, there were quite a few benefits mentioned of working with established controlled vocabularies. In some ways, it's less work. You can just pick it up and go if it works for you. It can be an artifact around which to foster collaborations. And it creates, as has already been raised, less work down the road. If you end up with different ones, everyone's doing their own thing, at some point you might have to put them together and make sense of them, and that's hard. And then we've got a couple of detailed notes about vocabularies missing, and I guess chemistry vocabularies have done a lot of flip-flopping. We didn't get to hear the story behind that statement, but there's clearly a little bit of pain there. So that's what we had. Any additions from people with me in group 3?
Right.
All right, that's what
Thanks,
we've got.
Aaron. Thanks a lot. Okay, room 4, Kathy.
So I think that we've got a lot that's already been said and that we also noticed in group 4. There were a lot of sort of missing either the didn't use control vocabularies, or control vocabularies are missing from the list. There were a few instances of missing terms or conflation of terms that was called out as being problematic in vocabularies. There was a point brought up about bridging between domains. So biogeochemistry, just to take my own example, if you're bridging both the ecology and soil science, that sometimes the vocabularies aren't well connected or well developed. Yeah, on the plus side, ENVO was called out as being particularly easy to navigate and clean. It was recognized that community support for vocabulary meant that you spent less time developing yourself, and that vocabularies can be used themselves as a tool to foster collaborations. Anything else that someone wants to call out for group 4 that I missed here?
That was very good, Kathy. Thanks. I'm laughing because as you were talking about bridging across the disciplines, and there's discussion about whether those are silos or cylinders of excellence. But I think it's an important one that you raised there, is having vocabularies that can actually bridge across. That's cool.
So this is Gary. I just had one insert on that session. We had to mention that the GCMDs are sometimes, the vocabularies are sometimes at different levels. Some of us wondered, isn't that going to be inevitable? What people were talking about is if you go down a branch, it should be at the same level, but it turns out that if you look at the terminologies in there, they're sometimes at different levels of abstraction.
Yeah, grain is an issue, isn't it? Okay, let's go on to group 5. Shelley?
Hi, thanks. So please recognize that I am not your vocabulary expert. So group 5, if you can jump in for detail as needed, I'll kick it off. So we recognize the fact that sometimes as we're moving our vocabulary content through a pipeline, that, for instance, the example here is the URI for the vocabulary that has a place in data site schema, but the repository might not actually capture that in order to populate. So kind of needing the entire pipeline to support keeping the content there. And I'm just skipping through our notes. Also, ENVO and EXO got a big thumbs up that what they're doing when they're connected into the repositories is providing information about a term in order to help a researcher make a good decision. So having that functionality is really valuable. And while we were creating new functionality, we were building this amazing new tool. So wouldn't it be fantastic if the URI could resolve really nicely, and there'd be a really great widget to tell you something about the source and represent what the relationship was and get any necessary annotations, right? So now we've got some requirements. And then leveraging, it would be also fantastic to leverage the semantic relationships from the data system annotations and all the ontologies that are available. And that's not really possible right now within the repository space. Group 5, did I do okay?
Super.
Thanks, Shelley. So we're actually doing pretty good on schedule. So now what we're going to try to further challenge our Zoom skills. And Aaron, I hope you're out there, because what we've asked Aaron to do is to assign us randomly to now 10 breakouts. So it will be, some of you may end up speaking to yourself, but I hope not. And what we're trying to do by making it that small is to really enable you to just let loose. And so again, the next session is going to be, this is really called rebuttals, omissions, and harumphs. And, there's probably some people out there harumphing. And it would be useful to know why you feel that way. And, what you're feeling like, these guys, they're just missing the point. So, so Aaron is.
I'm here, and we're ready to roll. If you're ready, tell me again how long you want this to be.
This will be a 10-minute.
Okay, so it's going to be the same deal, 8 minutes, and then it'll have a 2-minute countdown for you to finish those sentences.
Okay,
And
great.
where would you like notes?
Ah.
Hmm.
Oh shoot! Did we? How
Just
about
add it to the end?
The idea here was that if you had harumphs, that you would be making notes back in the original spreadsheets. Is that possible? Can you find your way back to those?
Yeah, I'll post the.
The way the conversation is going, I mean, these could be general comments on everything that we're talking about here, which might be better to do in plenary when we get back. But the original thing was like, after hearing all this, there's some points I want to make that go back into the spreadsheet. If that works.
So I think the spreadsheet, as well as I'm going to repost the link to the document that you were all contributing to just now.
Yeah, we can use that one. It'll be we'll have more breakouts, so it'll be more bouncing, but it'll work.
Yeah. So I think those are both mechanisms for, but if you go back to the spreadsheet, don't add stuff to other people's names. We'll trust you to be honest about that. Okay. Okay, Aaron, could you put us in the booth?
Yep, let's do it. Okay, Margaret, I did not assign you this time.
Okay, that's fine.
Do you want to be I can put you somewhere?
No, I'm somebody's writing her wrong. I'm fine. I'm actually trying to figure out if we're getting what I want.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. Yep, if you want to hang.
Yeah, so I'm just kind of looking through the notes. I mean, my goal is that we actually start to be able to draft some guidelines. And what I see accumulating is stuff vocabulary should do differently. And that's not quite what I'm after. Maybe we can't have guidelines until they do something differently. But if the guidelines are figure out who's doing it the way that works, like figuring out, then maybe that's what'll work as a starting point. Anyway, so I'm gonna go through the notes and stuff. And looks like Mark took off, so that's fine.
Yep. Yeah, I put him, since it seemed like he was able to bounce, I put him in a breakout, and I think he can bounce.
Sounds fine.
And Karen, I see that you haven't joined your breakout yet, which is totally fine, but I just want to make sure you're not having tech trouble. Maybe she's not at her desk.
You?
No, we're dreamers. We're dreamers here.
Oh, I have to go eliminate a lot of my rumps. I wasn't dreaming enough. Go ahead.
After the first ESIP, Simon took me aside. He's like, Kai, you're not one of those people that thinks you can just like merge all these vocabularies together, are you?
Didn't we talk about that then? And you said, yeah, actually, I was sort of hoping we could do that.
One can always dream.
Okay, folks, we've got 47 folks on the line. Thank you for hanging in there. I really strongly encourage you. to take a 30-minute break after the next 5 minutes, and then please do return for Simon Cox and Leslie Wyborn et al.'s session. They got some really great speakers. I mean, we'll be further digging into some of the issues regarding, officially the proliferation of vocabularies, which I think we've seen demonstrated as a significant issue here. Hopefully we'll learn a bit more about how to overcome some of those proliferation tendencies. Margaret, could you share
Sure.
your slide?
The slides, yeah. Oh, I better.
Mark, are you providing drinks?
Cookies. I brought cookies.
Yeah, got 30 minutes. We'd all be heading to the bar for a quick one.
Okay. I think that's this. Oh, I didn't present. I don't know where it's going to go. No guarantees. Oh, good. And one of the things they want from us is 3 takeaways.
Margaret, we're seeing your other screen.
Wait a minute, because I didn't do it right. I didn't present, then share. Yes, I did. Present. Share. Now you should see the wrap-up slide.
Yes. Thanks. Okay, so folks, thank you all for attending this session, and I think that hopefully there was some productive and stimulating conversation. Margaret and I will be organizing these notes. I think we're very much looking forward to interactions with the following plenary session with Simon, Leslie et al., and working together because there is a lot of common focus. I want to remind you all as well, though, that there are several semantic clusters at ESIP which are related to, we've called it vocabularies, but we have definitely been endorsing sort of a semantic approach to vocabularies, the semantic technologies, the harmonization, which is an actual attempt to align 2 vocabularies, environment ontology with suite. There's also this notion that we introduced briefly about how do you access the terms, and we have core listed there. That's also a group in ESIP. And then finally schema.org, which many of us, I would say, we say things like it's a gateway drug to semantics, it's lightweight semantics, but it's got the weight of Google behind it. So there's a huge amount of excitement about where schema.org controlled vocabulary can lead us. So in summary, what we're considering is, what do people think about having an ESIP cluster or just some sort of an interest group? I don't know if Erin's on, she can probably correct me about the proper organizational name for what this group would do to develop some vocabulary guidelines on behalf of ESIP. And for 3 other takeaways, I think that we saw that there was this notion of coordinating the various directories, that when Leslie and Kai were talking about the need for more documentation and definitions of terms, to be considering if you have, it came up repeatedly, my term isn't there, what do I do? So I think we've got a lot of other takeaways about top needs and priorities, but given the number of bullets that are currently appearing under Harumph, it's going to take us a little bit of time to digest and synthesize those. Margaret, did you want to have any last words, or if anybody else out there has some comments, we'd love to hear them.
So I still am looking for the 10 things to tell someone when they're looking for a vocabulary, how to choose. And there probably a lot of that's buried in here. And so it would be really great to come up with a few people to draft something. I'm thinking, even if it's only 1 page, as a starting place. And a slide. Yeah, a lot of what I see. 1 slide, 5, maybe it's only 5 things. I mean, a lot of what I see here is, these are the things vocabularies should do to become more useful. And some of that can be distilled into these points. What makes them useful? What makes it easy to use? So that's still what I'm after. And if that'd be great if that could happen in one of these vocabulary clusters.
So
it could, and I think,
Yeah, Karen. Sorry, Pierre.
I just wanted to say that your introductory slide, you had one that listed? Does it cover what you're interested in? What's the governance model? A few other points. I thought that was a pretty darn good start.
This one. Well, maybe so. That could be. And so the objective then would be putting limits or definitions on each one of these things. What does it mean to be, what is wide use? What is across disciplines?
One thing you might add is whether there's citations for where the definitions, the sources for the definitions, if that's
Cited
relevant.
definitions. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And I think, we touched on a lot of this at the visioning session when we were talking about the breakouts for the principles of a federation of semantic resources. So if there needs to be, that could be a joint activity. Like this group drafting this could be nested within that to help develop that in a principled way with good examples, and then distilling some of the feedback from this group.
Which one was that, Peter, that you're suggesting?
Sorry?
First one today.
Yeah, the visioning. So the visioning of a semantic resource federation for ESIP.
Gotcha, gotcha.
And there, especially in terms of the procedure and the quality control and the principles, the general principles of what the resources should look like, this is really within that scope. So this could lead it. In fact, you could lead the drive and we fold them together.
Schema.org is also doing similar things, so we could jump in as well, probably.
So
Science
I
on
said,
schema.org through ESIP, sorry.
so I made my comment about having a slide humorously, but in fact, there is a slide that overlaps with this very highly. And I feel it's necessary to highlight our breakout comment that a lot of us have been doing this exact session for about 15 or 20 years now. And the issue is we leave, there is no funding, everybody has a day job. Yeah, you sort of keep it going, but it isn't really solidly pursued and managed and all of that. And it's been a problem for that amount of time. And there are enough people engaging now that I think we should be able to move it beyond that issue and actually get bloody funding for it. Pardon the British, that's a bad word.
I think that's a really good point. But also, in that 15 years, people have been hearing that. I mean, it took me a while now. But now my job description is digital knowledge, right? This didn't exist, a few years ago. And so now my time is funded to support it. So it is changing. It's just slow. But that constant pressure counts.
Okay, I have one more kind of procedural question. Aaron, do we have all these people's names because they were in this room?
So we do have, there is a Zoom attendance list. So that's one way that we can get to it. It would be great though, and much easier for everyone, is if you could just put your name in the Google Doc. But yes, as a backup, I have all the names.
Well, I'm also assuming that everybody put their name in a spreadsheet too.
Right,
So
that's
that'll do. So if you didn't put your name in a spreadsheet, go do it now, even if doesn't matter which one, just plop it in one of them.
That's perfect.
Otherwise,
Yeah, but yeah, we can definitely, we'll have it on the backside too.
Yeah.
But
I don't want you to have to do it twice.
List? Isn't there a participants list on the page? The ORCID numbers?
There is also
That's in the spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Additional to the spreadsheet, there's also a participants list at the top of this page.
Okay. Yeah, we were trying to, I was thinking you'd have to put it in two places.
I think
Let's not have proliferation here, but.
I was going to say, I think there's a way to generate that list right out of Zoom too.
Well,
yes,
that's what
there
Aaron
is.
was saying.
Yeah, I can do that on my side too. I'm going to drop off and get ready for the next session, but thanks so much, guys. This was awesome. And Margaret and Mark, way to go on session design. This was super.
Great.
Thanks. And thanks for everybody for making it work. We had our fingers crossed the whole time.
We'll see you in a half hour.
All right, guys. See you in the next session.
Oh,
Yeah.
I've been made host.
Thanks.
Chat.
Thanks.
Take care.
The chat. How do I save the chat? Did she?
In the chat, the three dots in the chat window.
Yeah, but I don't see the toolbar anymore. I think.
Oh, well, I saved a copy. I can email it.
Okay, fine, great, thank you.
Okay.
It might have gone away with Aaron.
All right.
Yeah, it just
Talk to you
doesn't
soon.
come
I'm
up.
still the host if you need it, but if Steve's going to send you.
Okay. Yes, it's as long as somebody has it, just mail it or stuff it in the doc is fine too.
Thanks, Kai. And Kai, did you grab the participant list? I wasn't clear if people were saying it was possible, but somebody had to do it.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that works.
I think Aaron has to do it.
Aaron has it? Okay.
If it's Zoom, I think it's Aaron will do it, or one of them. But I was hoping that it was that everybody had put something in at least one spreadsheet. So, oh, I can stop doing this. Rob Rivetto, did you email me? I'm sorry.
I don't think so.
I don't think so. I got a message through Chat, and I think your name's familiar. I thought that might be one. It was someone I didn't know. It's just saying an introductory. Which I don't want to put you on the spot. It's fine if it wasn't. But if it was and I didn't write back, then I'm apologizing.
Well, folks, thanks, Kai, for moderating. Pulled you in there but you're getting to be a veteran at this sort of stuff. And
you've been doing this for a few years now. Are you still in Arizona, Kai?
No, I literally just moved like a couple weeks ago.
Are you in Portland?
I'm in Oregon, but not in Portland.
What part of Portland? I mean, what part of Oregon?
I'm currently in Florence, which is kind of like a small town on the coast.
Oh, yeah. What's going on there?
Oh, nothing. My family just lives there.
Oh, okay. Well, I went to OSU. So I spent a lot of time in Newport.
Corvallis.
Yeah. And then at the Breen Science Center at
Cool.
Newport too.
Nice.
Which is just up it's a ways up the coast.
Yeah, no, but it's somewhat close. Yeah, cool.
Kai, are you presenting in the next session?
No, the presentation I gave earlier was my only one for today.
Okay.
Okay, well, Mark, do we want to post-mortem anything, post-mortem anything, or do we? I'm just looking through these spreadsheets.
I don't. Right now, I'm feeling a little information overload. So
me too.
Yeah. Why don't we just kind of
chill?
Chill, and then we'll come back with renewed acuity.
Oh yeah,
there's always a chance of
that. What was that, Robert?
I said, at least your eyes aren't crossed. Mine are. I've been juggling so many screens and things, and I'm sort of fried.
Yeah. Well, hang in there. I think the next session is going to be interesting. So.
Okay.
Okay, folks.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
See you later.
Take care.
Oh, here's the chat. I can get it.
Yeah, so Margaret, I've been copying the chat into the.
Oh, okay. Into the Kiko chat Google Doc?
Yes, into the Kiko chat.
Okay, that's fine.
So I got most of the relevant points.
All right. I'll just look and see. I'll just make sure that everything is there.
Okay.
So that's not this one. That's the other one. Oh, be nice to close a few of these windows. Great. I see it all. All right, I'll grab the last of it and then, come on. Okay, well, I'm going to take off. Thanks again.